Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coffee Club. We are really excited for tonight's event, and I think, it's lovely to see lots of new faces and regulars here tonight. So far, Coffee Club has been a wonderful, wonderful experience with lots of people joining just around lots and lots of different topics that people share. And tonight, I think we're all looking really forward to hearing Stanley's story. I'd just like to firstly hand over to Rabbi Joseph just to open this evening, and then over to you, Steve, to introduce Stanley for us.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much again to Aideen and to everyone. These evenings, I look forward to these Thursday nights. They are the highlight of our week, these coffee clubs. It is phenomenal to think of all the different topics that we have had. And when this topic was mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I remember saying, wow, now that's not a story you hear every day. And I'm sure everyone is so excited to share and hearing the story. Thank you all so much for making the time to come tonight and for joining us. And I'm sure this will be something incredible and enlightening and something that will inspire us. And I have no doubt that we will leave different people than when we have logged on tonight. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the organizers. And without further ado, Steve, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. So I just want to introduce Stanley. So Stanley is my brother-in-law. He's married to my sister. A couple of years ago, I think we go back to 2003, we got this call to say that Stanley had a heart attack and he was sitting in Morningside Hospital, and we need to get to the hospital quite urgently. So we went in, we were sitting in the waiting room, and the doctor then came out with a nurse by his side. And Wendy was sitting next to me, and we heard him say to the nurse, said, look, we've done everything we can for him. Unfortunately, there's nothing more that can be done. So just keep him comfortable and he will talk to the family. And off he went. A few minutes later, Rabbi Orbach arrived. And he went into the room and he said to Hillel, and he said to Hillel, and he said to Hillel, and he left. Then the doctor came back. And he said, we heard him say, he walked out and he said to himself, or to his nurse, that this was an absolute miracle. He cannot believe that Stanley's blood pressure had gone up and he was going to actually survive. So that was, I think for us, was a most amazing moment. And I think there we saw the power of Hashem and exactly who is in control. So now I'm going to leave it up to Stanley to tell his story and what happened from that day onwards.
Thank you very much. I'm going to proceed from this point, and I'm going to start off at the moment where I was awaiting to go into surgery for the heart transplant. I am hopefully going to go all the way back to tell you what a heart attack feels like and all the problems I had up to this point. And I was probably in a state of shock at this time, waiting to go and have my heart transplant. And the surgeon and all the cardiac people were in front of me, and they didn't look very confident. And I knew I was very, very ill. And they were telling me that if I don't have the transplant, I could die tomorrow. So things weren't very encouraging whether I was going to have the heart transplant or not. But I had something that I'm going to tell you now that gave me the biggest boost in a sense, to know that I'm going to go through this because it's more than likely going to be successful. And if I have to describe how we probably felt like astronauts do before they go on a mission. It's so risky, and you have to do it, but it's all very uncertain what the outcome is going to be. And the thing that was holding me together at this point in time came to me after I'd had the heart attack, if I remember, I woke up and found a pamphlet next to me, and the pamphlet came from Stanley. And inside that pamphlet was a prayer for surgery. And that's what I'm talking about. They don't know that I had said this, and this is maybe the prayer that gave me the encouragement I needed. Just to mention that this prayer is like a brocha to me. When you say a brocha before you eat, and when you say a brocha before you say do the Torah reading, so in turn, now, every time I have a procedure, I try to make sure I say this. And it's interesting enough, it begins with the wording of Adon Olam. And then it goes on to say the following, which I'm going to actually read to you because these are the words that in a sense saved my life. V'hu eli v'chai goali, v'suchev li ba'et sarah, v'hu nisi umanos li manat kosi b'yom ekra, v'yado avkidruchi ba'et ishan v'ayira, v'imruchi gaviyati adonu eli v'lo ira. He is my Hashem, my living Redeemer, my stronghold in times of distress. He is my guide and my refuge. In the day that I call, he grants me my portion of happiness. I entrust my soul to his care when I sleep and when I awake, and with my soul, my body too. Hashem is near, I have no fear. O Hashem, whose mercies are infinite and whose love for his children is without end, my surgeon is your servant. Put into his heart a spirit of wisdom and understanding, a spirit of counsel and fortitude, a spirit of knowledge and reverence for thee. Inspire his judgment, guide his hand, make him and all those who assist him the instruments of your healing power. Can you see what I look like now? If you had seen what I looked like then, you wouldn't think it's the same person. And the health that I've had over the last 6 and something years, it was actually, it's almost, well, in February it will be 7 years actually, since I had that most terrible heart attack, and I was in failure and suffering like you can't believe. The next thing, which was an amazing thing that happened to me when I was in heart failure. Just before this time, I've kept this specially. If you'll read there, I don't know if you can see all that's written here, if I make it clear, but it says here that Kalava Rebbe Shita, he came to visit. And I went to see him, I think, during the week that he came, and there were a lot of people there. And when I saw him, bearing in mind, I am a very, very ill person. It wasn't so noticeable, but my days, we were counting the days till what looked like the end. And he said to me when he saw me, I wish you long life. And if you actually look at the art scroll Siddur, very interesting enough, because what he said to me that day about long life, because it's come true. And the Siddur, when you say the prayer for the month, it's got their long life. I won't read it to you this time. It's got a pointer there what long life really means. and that's what's been granted to me. But that's not where it ended. I happened to be there, and if you look at the date of this, it was October 11th to the 18th of October, this Jewish report of 2013. If I've got it right, I was 52 then, I was 53 when I had the heart transplant. So I was very young, and I happened to go to shul on Shacharit, for Shacharit, there it is. After the brocha, I was standing quite a long way away, and one of his disciples came to me and said, "The Rebbe wants to see you." So, okay, so I went to see the Rebbe, and he didn't say very much to me. He just said, "Shabbos is a refuah." Now look at me, Shabbos is a refuah. Fortunately, I've been keeping Shabbos. I was keeping Shabbos. I wonder what would happen to me if I didn't keep Shabbos. Perhaps if I didn't keep Shabbos, it would be worse than me not taking my medication. So I just hope that I never ever think not to, or be any reason why I don't keep a Shabbos. And that's a very interesting thing that has happened because we're in the week of the Shabbos project. Something else that I also have always thought about and know that the Parsha of the week is always very inspiring and relates to maybe what you're doing that particular week. And just to take one little point out of it, I just wanted to take one little point out of it, unless I've lost my bookmark. Okay, it's not so clear what the bookmark is. The point I wanted to make about it is it speaks about Avram's tests, the 10 tests. And it says that finally, regarding his 10 tests, he becomes elevated through those 10 tests. And to me, it has to be that the real hero here is my donor. And I sincerely hope that since the time he donated that heart to me, he has elevated his soul, and through my mitzvahs and doings and everything else and everything that I do, he is living and being constantly elevated for that incredibly kind deed, because death was a certainty. So now that I've introduced the whole reason why there was such a miracle as such as I see it, I'm now going to go back quite a while to look at a whole lot of miracles that happened starting from the time when I was in the age group 30 to 40. I can't even remember the exact day or the date of this one, but what happened is I had a normal flu symptom. I can't even remember exactly why I was going to the doctor that day. And maybe to be put on antibiotic or something. And then I go in there, I'm between 30 and 40, that's more or less how I remember it. And he does an electrocardiogram, which we know as an ECG. And I was very upset about it. I think, what, I'm 30, 40, whatever I was then. Why did he do that? And if you think about it now, you can see this is how Hashem runs the world. Because when I was born, there was no such thing as a heart transplant. It was an unknown factor. And here, I'm having an electrocardiogram, which was already one of the most important steps to my survival. So then comes when I'm about 42. I'm sitting at the Shabbos table, as it happened to be, and I'm getting a funny pain in my back. So I said to my wife, look, I'm not feeling so wonderful. I'm getting a terrible pain in my back. So I said, let me just go sit on the couch. So I went and sat on the couch. And then I feel this funny kind of squeezing. I'm 42 years old, this funny squeezing. And I think to myself, what is this? And I think to myself, aren't I a little bit too young to die? That's as long as it lasted. And after that, I get up, I'm fine. This is a Friday night. Saturday, I go to shul even. Sunday is a normal day. Monday, you see how you don't know when you don't know anything. Little did I know, that was an angina attack. So what happens is I even on Monday morning, I'm taking my daughter to school. So I was thinking to myself, maybe I'll take her to school and then I'll go to the doctor and then I'll go to work. But I must maybe find out what really happened on the Friday night, fortunately. So I go to him, and there again, I have an electrocardiogram. And he looks at it, and now this is years back, and it just so happened he was a physician and had all the equipment. That kind of electrocardiogram wasn't the kind you see today. It came out like on a 60 millimeter strip of paper. And this time he's looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. And then he looks at me and he says, "Didn't I do one of these before?" I said, "Yes, you did." Of course I remembered he did. So amazing, he kept it. He got out the other strip and he starts comparing the two and he's looking very closely at them. And then he says, "There's been a change." That's why it's so a good thing to maybe at a young age have an electrocardiogram test. And I believe they are so sensitive that some people, when they tell them you've had a heart disturbance, they say, "I never had a heart disturbance." They are really accurate. So the next step is, which I was quite upset about, of course, you must phone your wife. I'm booking you into Morningside, and you're going to something, maybe you're going to have a procedure. Okay. So I don't know what procedure, I don't know what now to expect. So my wife had to come and fetch me. I wasn't allowed to drive, and I go off to Morningside. They do the test of me, this time an electrocardiogram again there, and they tell me it's normal. So can you imagine if I'd never had the earlier one? Because there was a slight change and I was feeling fine. And I'm 42 years old and I don't feel, at this point, I'm not feeling in any way ill or anything. But we had discussed it with my GP and they decided I'm going to have the full procedure just as well. So they fitted me in because it was important, late in the night. And I come out of it, and this never heard of these things before. Angiogram, angioplasty. Just incidentally, those days it might have been more primitive than it is. They put wire up maybe from here or in your arm, wires, and they connect it to the heart. And normally with an angioplastic, as you can see the name, something like this, they insert into the heart to clear it. And maybe in the case of putting in stents, they put in wires, like similar to a garden hose kind of wires. So I'm finished with this, and they tell me, "We've just put in 2 stents and you're going to intensive care." It was very late at night, and I said, "Please, can I phone my wife?" So I phoned my wife and I told her, "I'm not in the ward. I've just had a procedure and they put in 2 stents, and I don't know. I never knew anything about what was going to happen. So I'm told to put my legs straight. And they're not as common those days to do these kind of procedures, and I'm very, very upset. Here I am in intensive care. Fortunately, fortunately, after that, I recovered, and I was feeling fine right up. This is 42, right up until the age of 49. So 49. Now you're going to hear a story. I happened to be working on a Sunday. I'd had lunch, and it just so happened that day I forgot my keys, and it was at my brother's office. And because I wasn't going to work, because I had forgotten the keys, and he was there, and I had to leave when he was leaving. So I put my bag in the boot, and then I started walking down the passage. and I got this most terrible pain in sort of feeling in the back, but not quite like before. This was a lot different. And I started taking a few steps, and then I collapsed. And the sensation was as if someone had just shot me. It was too terrible. The pain, you can't, to have a heart attack like that one, it was really, really bad. As bad as it could ever be. And the next thing, I can't breathe. Feel like they took me and they threw me in the swimming pool. I felt a feeling of drowning. And I said, fortunately, I said, I'm having a heart attack. Please phone Hatzola and my wife. And I was thinking, how much longer before I go into a coma? And perhaps that's that. And, I couldn't think that how, I'm too young or too this or too that. It was just, I thought, that's it. I'm going any second. I'm going any minute. And I was straight. I was grasping for every bit of air I could. And the next minute, okay, fortunately, Hatzola did come very speedily. And I was too scared to move one way or the other. They put me into the ambulance. And then the next thing, I don't know what they did. I brought up everything. And the next thing, I was off to Moore Park again. And this time it was very different. They said, I hope you do not mind if we make a little bit of noise. And the sirens were on. And then I think, at least I'm going to the hospital. I'm not going to the cemetery. And it was terrible. My condition was terrible. Fortunately, this is another miracle. I arrived at the emergency at Moore Park. And who's on duty? It's a Sunday. My cardiologist. So there wasn't a necessity to go through all my history. And also, interesting enough, I've been looking after myself all those years, nevertheless, maybe not so good, but I was looking after them, taking my pills. My cholesterol was low. Okay, maybe it's all caused by anxiety and not the best heart in the world. So they take me in, and I am in an emergency. I'm feeling so uncomfortable. And this time in an emergency, so it's almost like straight away. And I have another angiogram and angioplastic, 2 more stents. Mind you, I must tell you now, I've got no stents. And then I had 4 stents. So I go here, then I get taken out of that, and they put the monitor on to check my breathing. They're not reading anything. So the cardiologist looks and says, let's see, have we connected it correctly? And then he thinks to himself, oh, I'll put it on my finger. He puts it on his finger, and he sees that it's not that it's not reading. It is reading, but my reading is not reading. So the next thing, on goes the ventilator. Now, if you want to know why I'm so careful not to go out during this COVID, it's because I've been on a ventilator. After 5 minutes on that ventilator, and I really needed it then, I wanted to take it off. It was so uncomfortable. This thing is over your mouth and squeezing so tightly, and it's so uncomfortable. And you got this machine making it like a washing machine noise, and you really, really, really are uncomfortable. Fortunately, another miracle, I only needed it for 1 night. Baruch Hashem. But after that, I was in heart failure. And they said to me, let's wait 6 months, perhaps the heart muscle because at this time there was damage, the heart muscle might start to work. It's a little thing like this. If you look at what they call, you know, the echo, as they call it, echocardiogram, you see a tiny little thing. It's smaller than a little finger. Tiny little thing goes like this. And that shows your heart muscle is working. Mine was as still as anything. And that was going to cause the biggest problems you can imagine, not having a heart muscle working. The results of that, I can't tell you in the order it came, but my legs started to swell. I started to get leg sores, which they call ulcers. It's just your whole life was turned around. You're on this pill called Lasix. I don't know if anybody knows what Lasix is. It's a diuretic to try and get the water out. You need to go to the bathroom almost every 10 minutes. It's so uncomfortable, and life is actually very much, it's very stressful both for you and your family. But then there was something else I had to start living with. All of a sudden, you would get a burst blood vessel. And the blood would just pour out. And I was on, I had a blood pressure generally of 80/50. That was the normal situation. And then once this blood, the one time that the blood came out, squirted out so fast and so furious. I now learned, after a few times, I once learned to how to control it and squeeze my leg. As this time it was on my one leg. And then one of the times I went to my GP then, which wasn't the same as the other one, and he had to put 4 stitches in without an injection, because there was just simply no time. That is the situation one is in when one has heart failure. Now I'm going back to the time. I'm not sure how my time is, but I'm going back to the time when I saw the Calavana ribbon. And this is my condition. It wasn't so obvious, but if you had asked me to walk up a couple of stairs, it was an absolute battle. And it was already getting difficult to walk down the incline, but up an incline was almost impossible. You'd walk 4 steps and stop and take a breath. So he gives me a brocha for long life. And the next time on the Shabbos, he gives me a brocha. He says to you, remember he said to me, what did he say to me? Shabbos is a refuah. So then, not 2 weeks or 3 weeks after that, what happens to me? You'd think just the opposite. I find I go into kidney failure. Okay, I'm not going the whole long story. We worked that out. Back into Morningside. And then, what a miracle. Because I now was in what they call final stage organ problems, which meant I now became eligible for a heart transplant. And to cut a long story short, and everything else that went with it, and the weight, it just so happened that I as you heard, I got to the point where they phoned me up one day and they told me they have a heart waiting for me. And the other miracle of this heart transplant is the fact that as I said before, it was very risky. In my case, it was of a person of 30 years old. That's number one, so it was a young person. But the other thing, which seems like the biggest miracle of them all as well, is that not only, I think, did it have to be the same blood type, which it had to be, but it was also has to be a replica for it to really make such a perfect match, which I think it was. So I think that's I've left out a few of the minor points because this is the gist of it. And I would really like to thank you for this opportunity to share this story with you. Are there any questions?
Sometimes takes a couple of moments for people to get their questions together.
Okay.
But thank you. I think Rabbi Joseph's got a question.
I do. So I'm just there was some interesting research that was once discussed about transplant patients and certain organs that after a while they noticed that certain characteristics changed or certain features changed or certain personality traits changed before and after, because they say that, you know, that you're getting someone else's organ and someone else's vital organ, and that's what's beating through you. Did you experience any things like that?
Well, what about me?
What I will say to you is when I had the heart transplant, some people mightn't, I doubt if it's ever happened, but it seemed like a near-death experience. Okay. And that leaves you in a bit of shock. I believe the material that I have here, and it's very intensive. If someone who was studying cardiology, this book is really a good one. When I had that, maybe for a second I did lose my life, so to speak. Maybe for a second. So it's a very that shock might set off a reaction, and then they say through it's actually they say in the book. I think I actually did maybe not live for a second because of the hallucinations I had, which were also incredible. I'm not going into them now, but they were quite spiritual. I think that it's mainly that kind of a shock that sends people off in maybe that causes maybe a bit of a character upset. But no, it doesn't actually upset. It doesn't have any effect on your soul, actually. And if you speak to cardiologists, they will really speak. If they could have a swimming pool pump and put it in instead of your heart, that's all it really is. So it's the fact that people actually refer to somebody with a good heart and a good that, and they're a good person, and it's actually not. It's not the heart they're talking about. They're actually talking about the person's soul. So I still think I have the same soul, and it was just really a question of installing a pump.
Thank you. Honey raised her hand. I just, Honey, are you able to unmute yourself?
Maybe while she's
sorry, I'll
doing
unmute myself. I'm actually, it's my dad's, but sorry. I wanted to ask my dad, firstly, what gave him the motivation to carry on hoping when he was so sick and it didn't feel like the heart was coming? Like, what gave him the motivation to carry on? And then also following that, what did it feel like when after the risky procedure, he woke up and he realized that he survived the heart transplant?
Okay, you know what gave me the courage to carry on. I could say you did, your mother did, and you know, to want to be at your weddings, to be part of your life, to you know, I wasn't completely switched off. It's you know, you don't want to leave. You don't want to leave this world, especially if you've got children like I've got, like you. And what did it feel like when I woke up after the transplant? The thing is, I had so many pipes attached to me and so many other things, and this time I was also on a ventilator, but it was much more comfortable. And I could say I was probably very confused. But the thing that was disturbing me most of all the time, and I have made the suggestion to them, the thing that was worrying me, what was the day and what was the time? And I wanted to know what was the day and what was the time, and I found that I could not speak because it was just through this, with all these things on top of it, just say, what is the day and what's the time? And then when it came to writing or asking questions, my hands, this is the effect of all the medication, were like this. I could, it was just about impossible to write. And when it came on the spare moments after that to even Dublin, everything was blurred. And it does affect your eyesight terribly, so you actually can't see. And I can remember, I think it was even a week later, when I tried to say Kiddush, the cup was shaking so much that if I take out the siddur even now, I can still see the place where the droplets of the wine spilled. So that the real issue is you are so grateful, really, that you are alive. I think that came as the greatest relief to me, that I knew I was alive, but I was going through then and other points in times over that time when I was sleeping so much. What I would say, one really was kind of hallucinations, which was quite unbelievable. Just to say, okay, what one might have been. It seems like there was a voice coming from somewhere, and it says, "Do you want to speak to your father?" So I kind of remember saying, "Isn't it wrong to speak to the dead?" Because that's something, unfortunately, I think I had learned. And silence after that. This is actually one of the things. So then, why I'm saying that, because I've got a 30-year-old heart, and the most amazing thing is, and now I don't know what my long life is going to be, is that in a sense which ties up with maybe my father, is his mother died at approximately the age of 30, not from a cardiac problem that I know of, but he grew up basically without a mother. And maybe that was a message. If I had maybe taken the call, I might not have lived, but I maybe never even thought about that. But that's the message I think of as a result of that, of my waking up. And those hallucinations, and part of those hallucinations was so frightening. I've never been more scared in my life.
Stanley, what has happened to your heart, your own heart that you had?
The original heart, Rabbi Auerbach said, should be buried. So I actually never saw it, but it just so happened at that point in time, my mother was still alive, but she was very frail at that time, and she wasn't well, and she actually passed away 3 months after my transplant. But the interesting thing about it is, I think, and I'm very, very grateful before, that she didn't ever have to endure the pain of having lost a son, because it looked like my illness was, I was going to die from my illness, but that didn't happen. And as it had turned out, before my heart was buried, so I have a grave already reserved at West Park, which I visited, interesting enough. But it actually, before that heart was taken to be buried, it was my brother had the heart in like a lunch tin, as I understand it, and my mother actually asked if she could see it, so she knew, and I did see her after the transplant, so she knew, Baruch Hashem, it was a success. Even though I did suffer quite a few complications straight after the transplant, but all those, especially the heart failure complications, have all gone. Amazingly, I have heart transplant issues, which I suppose every person who's had any kind of transplant have, but not specifically heart issues. It's an absolute miracle.
Stan, there are quite a few questions that have come up on the chat. Maybe I can just ask you some of them. So Janet Gritzman asked, do you know who your donor was? I mean, so you have an idea of the age, but do you have any idea about the donor?
No, they keep that an absolute secret. That's how they've decided, the Bureau have decided to treat this matter. Especially with these heart cases. I don't know.
Thank you. And then Gloria Ash asked, did you suffer from any depression after the heart transplant?
I think one of the most fortunate things out of all complications that I have is an interesting thinking that I had such terrible heart failure at one point in my life, is that I do get very anxious. I'm say tremendously anxious, and I probably was very, very anxious from that heart transplant. But fortunately, I actually would say I'm one of the few lucky people these days that actually not really a person who suffers from depression. And even to this day, I don't take pills for that. But I would say if I were suffering from it, like I'm so good at taking all my other pills, I would take them. But I don't take pills for depression. And I don't take, also another interesting thing, for the large part, I don't suffer from indigestion either. So that's like a brocha I have.
Thank you. Ryan Davis said, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. So incredibly inspiring. And then how is your health today? I think you've told us a bit about that. Do you want to tell us a bit more at all?
My health today is, I'm nearly 60, but some people say to me in the show, you've got the most healthy heart yet. So if you had said to me, and if I was going to be this well, I would have never believed you. And when I went in for that transplant, I was just praying. Let me just live. And I thought I'm gonna probably come out of this, and I'll spend the rest of my life probably in a bed and in a wheelchair. But it's not like that. You can see it's not like that. I'm as good as any other person my age, I would think. And maybe even better, because I've got a 30-year-old heart. It's now 37. It's actually, I'm going to celebrate my 7th birthday in February.
Wow. Noah asked, did your experience strengthen your faith in Hashem?
I would think so. It has to. It has to. Yes. If you had survived if you're a survivor, and you come out of the, and you get the brocha, your brochas come true. You have to become a better, put more trust and faith in Hashem. I'm sure it has affected my imuna and betochna quite substantially. Yes.
Thank you. And then Khani said, we have a picture of the heart if anyone wants to see. So just that's, I mean, is that something that you'd be, I mean, if people would be interested in seeing it, perhaps they can just be in touch. I'm not sure. I mean, is that something that you would want to share just on this sort of platform?
Yes, no, it's you know, it's fun because it's you know, when they do the heart transplant, they take a section, they leave a section behind actually. So it's not quite like this, but if I would say, if we were talking about removing a bottle, they'll leave the bottle top, and then but what you will see is, which is something I didn't have time to talk about. It really, really looks terrible. And just to talk on that point, you might get you'll see how ill I really was. When they were doing the angiogram before I had my heart, before I had my heart transplant to according to all the tests that they have to do and measurements that they have to take, I could see my heart on the screen. And after that angiogram was finished, I felt finished. They said to me after that, they said to me, how do you feel? I said, my words were, I am dying. And I was actually telling the truth. So that's the kind of heart you'll see, the heart of a person who is basically living on very, 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 on his last few months and days.
Steve, are you able to share that photo on?
Yeah, I've actually asked Khani to send it to me, and then I'll put it up on the screen.
Okay, thank you. Just to carry on with some of the comments, so Ashira said, thank you for sharing, Uncle Stan. And Krista said also, thank you for sharing your story. Michelle Hamill said, how long did you have to wait for your heart?
Okay, I'd say this is another miracle, and this is the problems that people have. Mine came very soon. It was in October that the idea was suggested that I have one, more or less. Soon after, actually I saw kind of a really, actually not so long after it, the idea came up that I'm eligible for one, and in February I had it. So it was a question of waiting till from October, November to February, which is not very, very long. It can be up to 3 years. And I think if I waited any longer than that, because of my condition, I wouldn't be alive. But the other interesting thing about it is how it works. When they had suggested the heart transplant, and I'd asked Ashara if I can have one, and then it came back positive, I actually wasn't very positive I would ever get one, because I just thought it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. I mean, what's the possibility of me it ever coming? And when I did visit the Heart Bureau, they gave me a lot of encouragement, because they said, what actually happens with this, you're not really put on a waiting list. What actually happens here, and which is really remarkable, when someone donates a heart, it only matches one person. And it happened to be on that particular day, even though there was air freighted, up from the Cape. I'm not sure if it was the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, but it actually, I had to wait for the heart to come to Mill Park where I had the surgery. It happened to be on that day that there was a duplicate heart available of a 30-year-old. What a miracle! It was probably at the precise moment, at the precise right time that I got it. With much thanks to the donor, of course, and I hope he's got a very big chalik for it.
Stan, can I just add?
Oh, sorry, Steve. Go
I just
first.
want to add to that story, in that just before Stanley got his heart, we actually went to a bris. It was a bris that was held at the Sfadi Shul. Now, that Sfadi Shul actually used to be the home of my parents. And there was a bris there, and when the bris was finished, I saw a lot of people walking up to the Sundik. I couldn't quite understand this because this was my first Sfadi bris I'd been to. And then somebody told me, you go to the Sundik and you get a brocha. So I actually went to the Sundik and I asked for a brocha for Stanley that has a refuah and that he can get a heart soon. And it's 3 days later, I think, or 2 days after that, that the heart actually arrived. So again, you have to you see the hand of Hashem all the time. It's just amazing.
Yes.
Thanks, Steve. I mean, it's always amazing, there's just to put together, in retrospect, everybody's experiences and those little sparks where you really do see a very different type of story. Here's a question from Ryan Davis. It is clear how grateful you are to your donor for saving your life. If you're comfortable to share, did your feelings about organ donation change from your experience? And have you had any conversations about this with poskim from a halachic perspective?
What I'd really learned about it, which I didn't put so much emphasis on through the whole illness, which is the real message that I want to give across to everybody who is ill, and even seriously ill, is to never give up hope. And that's the main message that I want to convey about it. Yes, sure, I'm so grateful about it, but a person wasn't so happy because, especially with a heart transplant, I really didn't know what to daven for, because it's coming from a person who's not. It's coming from a person who passed away, so it's not a nice feeling actually. That I hope that he had a good schus from it all, and in the parsha of this week that we speak about. We speak about Avram and his kindness, interesting enough. From that point of view, I'm grateful that there are so many kind people in the world who do this kind of thing, because that's what's incredible about it. But I would rather say that, and especially in the case of Jewish people, it's not perfectly allowed necessarily on many occasions that we can actually donate our hearts. The other organs, yes. So it's actually, I would like to just say on that point, I'd like Mashiach to come and everybody just be well. And then that we don't need transplants of any nature.
Aideen, I think Avril wants to talk.
Hi, sorry. So I'm Stanley's wife. I just want to just say something from our point of view, from the family's point of view of that waiting period, and how we really saw Hashem for all of us. When he was measured to see whether he was a candidate for a heart transplant, our cardiologist at the time, it was Dr. Steingo, said to me, when he came out, he said to me, he has about 6 months. We have about 6 months to find a donor. And the time was going and going, and we were getting so frustrated. He was even getting so frustrated. He said he actually came to visit him, and he said, I wish I could just go into the street and knock someone over the head and take their heart. And then it was getting to a point where Stanley was already back, almost back into kidney failure, and he was having these bleeds that we couldn't stop. And then the phone call came, and that feeling when the phone call came was like a feeling of, it was unreal actually. We couldn't really believe it was happening. And then just before, when he was being prepped for surgery, the cardiac surgeon came to us and said, I must just let you know that the heart that we've found for him, normally we don't use. The person was a young person, but he had died from a kind of cancer. He had bone cancer. And he said that usually we look for hearts where the person, unfortunately, it's a sudden death, a car accident, and the heart is actually healthy. So he said he had spoken to the person's oncologist, and the oncologist said that this kind of cancer does not go into the heart. Usually it does go into the lungs, and he would be happy, with the doctor using the heart. But he said, I have to tell you this because there is a chance that it's, that it could be, and then we will be giving you the cancer. So we didn't know what to do. It was like such a shock. And I said to him, what would you do? And he said to me, I would take it, because he said he's going to die today anyway. Those were his words. He said he's in kidney failure, he's in heart failure, he's going to die today. So if it was me, I would take the chance. So that's really how close it was. And if it didn't come then, who knows? And the other thing is our cardiologist now, the head of the transplant, the head cardiologist, the transplant cardiologist, who's Dr. Castle, actually said to me that it is very, very rare that they found such a match. That in Stanley's case, he said they have found like an absolutely perfect match. And that's really very rare because, look, he's also had problems, but generally, like, these patients have a lot of problems post-transplant. And Stanley, he's had problems, but it's not nearly as bad. So, really, we're just so incredibly grateful to Hashem for what he's done for us. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Can I just share it with you? Can you see it?
You can. Thanks, Steve. Sure.
Yeah, it doesn't look too good. Okay.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing this, and thank you for sharing such a deeply personal journey. And I think also, what it also highlights tonight is that it's the person who goes through it is obviously the primary person who needs to be supported and goes through this incredible journey, but also for the family, what this is as a family in terms of the trauma and in terms of the hope that you have to be able to hold on to. Thank you for sharing that as well. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment or a question? Thank you to everybody for all your participation.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity of sharing my story. And I hope you all will be well, and wish you all good health.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Aideen and Stephen. And I believe my doctor is one of, I didn't know that, my daughter's just pointed to me, especially to Dr. Les Gritzman, who actually saw me through all this. He can tell you a lot more what I put him through. I thank him so much for and everybody else who's involved, and all the davening, and all the rabbis, and everybody else who helped tremendously.
Thank you. And lots of people are saying thank you. Thank you very much for a very inspiring story, and it's such a privilege to have listened to you both, to you as well, Avril. So before we end tonight, as you know, we do have a lucky draw, and tonight we have a Frangelica's cheesecake to draw. So the way that it works, for those of you who haven't joined us before, I have got everybody's name. So Noah did it last week. No, I've got it tonight. And I've got a number next to everybody's names, and then I elect a special independent person. Here she is. This is Mixie, so hello, Mix. And Mixie is going to do the number generator on my phone. So, sorry, 1 second, I just need to change it because there are 38 people. Just be aware, please.
No, 39.
Oh, sorry, Mixie's 39. Okay, perfect. No, this is because we were double. Thank you. We are sorted. She's making sure everything is done according to the strictest of rules. What I do want to say is that there are a few iPhones and iPads that don't have names. So if you look down, like I've got somebody down here who says just iPhone. So if I call that, please make sure you check if it's yours, else you're going to miss the cheesecake. Okay, next, generate the number.
7.
Number 7, and number 7 is Abraham
Siegel.
Abraham Siegel. You are the winner of the Frangelica's cheesecake. Well done.
Well done.
Are you
Thank
able
you
to
so
unmute yourself?
Where is he?
Thank you. First thing I've ever won.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have to show him.
Yeah, that'll be a nice Shabbos treat. So what I'm going to do is, and thank you very much to Frangelica's who have very generously donated to us. I'm going to send through your name to them, and then they will be expecting you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
No,
much.
and then just also in terms of the next, no, I don't know if you want to add anything tonight.
I'd just like to wish everybody a bracha for success in everything they want, and that all their dreams come true. Like this one, probably my dream came true. Everything beautiful. They should have everything beautiful in their lives, as is according to Hashem as well.
So, Aideen, thank you. I just wanted to apologize that I came to today's coffee talk a bit late. I was just having internet issues. I just wanted to say thank you so much for Stanley for joining our coffee club and kicking off our medical series. And just to all the participants, everyone that's joined us, I just want to thank you for supporting our coffee club. Aideen and I we've taken this on, but we love it. We love speaking to, getting the new guests, getting the guests, and I just want to thank everybody for their support. And for my partner in crime, Aideen, thank you for all the hard work.
Can I just ask something?
Oh, Adam would like to ask something.
Aideen, when am I going to get the chocolate hamper?
No.
It's going to come this week. Sorry, that was last week's prize that Adam won. It's coming, Ad. We're just a little bit slow on the deliveries.
Sorry about
Frangelica's will be more competent. You will get it, don't worry.
Just to let everybody know as well that this is being recorded. So if you want the recording or if you want to share it with anybody, please let me know and I'll send the link to you. It will also be available on YouTube. So.
Yeah.
Great. And then we will also be confirming, we've got a very exciting talk coming up. So we will be confirming just dates and times. So thank you everybody for being here, and Shabbat Shalom, and we'll see you all hopefully at our next Coffee Club.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.